The cuffs clicked before the so-called accountant could load his next slide, and the room went from smug to silent, like someone yanked the power cord. 3 minutes later, a federal judge froze every bulldozer upstream, and the HOA queen, who had been running our lives with a laminated rulebook, lost her crown. And somehow, it all started with a $500 fishing ticket for my 78-year-old grandpa at a lake we'd used for 15 years. My name is Jackson Collins. I'm the guy who thought Google results could beat notarized paper, and my grandpa is William, the quiet kind of man who believes water has a mood. If you're patient enough to listen, the kind who wears the same dented hat and drinks black coffee out of a thermos that looks older than me, and that Saturday morning at Oakwood Shores, the air smelled like pine and geese were heckling the skyline, and I was carrying a donut when high heels hit gravel, and our HOA president, Gianna Hall, lifted her phone like a badge and said, "This shoreline is private HOA access. Only step away from the water." Grandpa blinked up calm, because that's how he is when he's blindsided. "Ma'am, I've fished here every weekend for 15 years. Never had trouble." And as he reeled in, I saw him nudge a small, scuffed USB deeper into the tackle box. And I saw the exact moment Gianna noticed it too, like a cat spotting a laser dot. And she produced a pink slip and read from it. Like Choir $500 for unauthorized use payable in 10 days. And I did the thing a lot of 32-year-olds do when they want justice fast. I pulled up County GIS riparian access. Public waterway statutes buzzing with heat. Actually, according to online maps, this area is designated public. Your property lines stop short of mean high water. And she smiled without warmth and reached into a chic bag and laid out a manila folder bulging with notarized pages and said, "Phone apps aren't legal documents." Sweetie, and when Officer Miller arrived, tired eyes, patient voice, he listened, shook his head at my screen, scribbled the ticket anyway. And the part that didn't leave me wasn't the fine. It was Gianna lowering her tone as folks drifted off and saying, "Keep that storage device safe, Mr. Collins. Wouldn't want your fishing memories to vanish like a snake under leaves." On the slow walk to the car, something small snagged my brain. The map code on the citation read J52441, but when I checked the HOA boundary grid on their own site, that code didn't exist, and nothing makes me crazier than secret maps for the rule makers and friendly maps for the rest of us. So I did what stubborn people do when they're humiliated. I researched until midnight. I pulled meeting minutes and violation logs and property transfers. I made a spreadsheet like a raft and a pattern surfaced like oil. Since Gianna took over 17 disputes, lots of quick sell-offs fines that felt less like discipline and more like leverage. So I parked across from her real estate office with a borrowed telephoto lens and told myself I was doing civic homework. Then I made the dumb move I'd spend days paying for. I confronted her in the produce aisle at Miller's Market, laid out prints in her cart, and said louder than necessary, "You're weaponizing the HOA to tank values and steer properties through shells." And she plucked a photo, glanced, smiled. "When did you take this, Jackson?" Because I was in Denver that week. "Would you like my itinerary?" And store security played back footage of me, tailing her like a clumsy spy, and handed me a cease and desist with 7 days stamped on it. And my wife Lena packed a suitcase with that quiet speed that tells you the fight is already decided. You followed a neighbor with a camera. Do you hear yourself? And then Janet Thompson, the neighbor who materializes whenever drama hums, knocked with an envelope holding 2 glossy shots of me from angles I didn't know existed, which meant someone was watching the watcher. That night, I got a message from a stranger named Marcus Rivera. I saw what happened. "You're fighting the wrong enemy." I used to do accounting for people who run these schemes coffee tomorrow, and I should have said no. But grief makes you hungry for a guide. So we met at Central Park Cafe, and he looked like Central Casting sent over. Concerned accountant, wire rims, worn briefcase, steady handshake, and he slid a tablet with email fragments about a development company called Riverside, community destabilization, Titan violation, cadence, convert to motivated seller. And it fit too perfectly. You know what I mean? Like a key that's strangely smooth in your hand, then the bell over the door jingled, and two big suits walked in without ordering. And behind them, Gianna, not smug at all, pale and brittle. And she said to Marcus, "Not to me, you can't do this. Not with my daughter on the line," and the suits drifted like chess pieces. And Marcus didn't flinch. "Public place is safer," he murmured. Then told me to check the county records basement for old watershed surveys. 86 red ink, mineral anomalies. And now my confusion had a direction. The basement smelled like old paper and slow government, and the microfiche bloomed with red pins along feeder creeks that feed our lake, notes about pH spikes after storms. Turbidity that wouldn't quit, and for the first time, I saw Grandpa's water has a mood as fieldwork. Not poetry, then the next scene belonged in a gritty show. Meridian Garage. Level 3, flickering lights. Long shadows. And Marcus already there, with a new kind of confidence. Eyes working like scanners. And Gianna stepped from behind a pillar with a photo of a dark sedan. Idling near Riverside Elementary. Kids in backpacks. And the plate number hit me, because I'd already seen it in the glossy Janet brought. The same car, watching me when I was watching Gianna, and Marcus snapped a shot of the print too fast, like a man who knows chain of custody. And I asked, "How do you know so much about my family?" And he answered a question I didn't ask. "Your grandfather was a hydraulic guy, right? The kind who can gather evidence that stands up." And when he turned away, Gianna gripped my sleeve and whispered, "His name isn't Marcus. It's David Harris. I saw him in Riverside meetings. He gathers intelligence on residents. He's doing it to you right now, and all the pieces rearranged like magnets flipping polarities. I took everything. The plate match, the microfiche photos, the fake code. J4471, the child surveillance image, to Detective Lena Rodriguez at the sheriff's office, and she listened with that half-skeptical, half-maternal look. Until I set the school photos on her desk, and then she started making calls. "If there's a public meeting tonight, we'll be there." And that night, 200 neighbors packed into Oakwood Community Center for a session that smelled like floor wax and nerves, and Marcus, David, arrived with 2 attorneys and a projector and handed out lawsuit packets that shouted to $88 million. In a typeface you could see from space, "We're seeking relief from harassment and defamation," he announced. And he clicked to a slide of me with that long lens, and I did the stupid brave thing and hijacked the HDMI quick pit stop folks. And my first slide put his DMV headshot next to a corporate badge that said, "Riverside Development." David Harris, and the room's noise turned electric. Then I showed the school plate timeline. 1 car, multiple drivers. Same orbit around kids and around me, and parents stood up because sitting wasn't possible anymore. And that's when Detective Rodriguez walked in, with 3 uniforms, and said, "Clean as a bell, David Harris, also known as Marcus Rivera. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit extortion, criminal harassment, and making terroristic threats against minors." And when the cuffs closed, he dropped the mask and shouted at me, "You think you won something?" Check the old man's gear. He documented everything, and that was the sentence that turned a neighborhood feud into a federal problem. Late that night, I found Grandpa by a burn barrel feeding copies into a careful fire safety glasses on hand steady, and without drama. He said, Army Corps of Engineers, 32 years, water quality, environmental impact. I've been logging what they dump for 15 years. And he pulled that scuffed USB from his jacket like a fuse and said, GPS coordinates photos, pH readings, 8 to 15 times. Legal limits, audio of supervisors, bragging about hitting deadlines by skipping protections. Originals are already with agencies. These are the copies, and the next morning, we stood before Judge Patricia Collins in a courtroom that smelled like pledge and authority, and she said, "You have 180 seconds," and I plugged in the drive and went. Slide by slide. Then and now photos of the same reach clean water to chemical foam GPS dots with dates and numbers that make your stomach drop. Flow maps that draw a straight arrow from illegal outfalls to the beach where kids scoop minnows in June. And the judge leaned forward and asked Riverside's lawyer if they disputed authenticity, and he tried to dance through methodology and chain of custody and government overreach. And she let him have his 30 seconds of music before she brought the gavel down. Temporary restraining order granted, all upstream development. Paused, pending expedited EPA review. Evidence. Preservation is mandatory. Any spoliation will be sanctioned. And the silence that followed felt like oxygen coming back. After a too-long tunnel, phones buzzed. Lawyers started doing triage math. And that night, the HOA board read its own bylaws out loud and suspended Gianna pending investigation, and the same gavel she used to scare us ended up ending her tenure. No confetti, just consequence. Here's the part that keeps me honest. Was Gianna the villain or a pawn who woke up late? She weaponized rules, yes, but she also showed up shaking with a photo of a sedan stalking her 12-year-old, and she helped trigger the trap that snapped on the operative who'd been circling our families. Forgiveness doesn't come easy, but fear explains more than we want to admit. And the TRO we won isn't a cure, it's a lock on a door. While the fire brigade sets up, the EPA will test Riverside. We'll hire PR and say, partnership and transparency, and somewhere a new Marcus is shaking a new hand. I was the guy who thought swagger could outrun paperwork. Yeah, that happened. And then I learned the only thing that beats corporate muscle is truth, with coordinates on it signed by someone who did the work when nobody was watching. So tell me this, and be honest. If you had 15 years of evidence that a developer polluted your water and used your HOA to squeeze your neighbors, how far would you go to stop it? Where's the line between justice and going too far? And does a parent under threat deserve the same blame as the suit who made the threat? Drop your state the worst HOA fine you've seen, and what justice should look like in a case like ours. I'll be in the comments because somewhere a grandpa is still fishing, wondering if the water's mood finally sounds like relief.